this episode today because it is one that I've been longing for. So the question we're answering today is, who is really going to own all the things that I have built or my family have built when I leave? Is the government going to be in charge of it? Who is? What do I need to do? How do I need to put things in place so at the end people don't have to fight over my stuff? That is the question we are asking today. So like now we're talking to that woman about planning things, so when the time comes, it's not when you're planning, when you're trying to figure out how it goes. And most of the ones we're talking, and her family, we're talking to people around our age that have older parents right now, and most of us are the eldest children, or we have to deal with all the things. And again, from our culture, we know that our parents don't want to talk about wills and death and all that fun stuff. So we want to take this opportunity to actually make the conversation okay, like this is why and this is what will happen kind of thing. Like, okay, so this is the real conversation. This is what will happen if you don't do da 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 da. This and this is what you can do to help us do the work that, or to help secure the things that you have worked for. So that is what we want to talk to that woman about. And obviously, you know way more than I do because I am right there too. And I think I know some of the letters and the words that people say, yep, will trust, power of attorney, health directives, but what are they? What do they do? How do I figure stuff out?
You have a sister friend who you can talk to about your imperfections, vulnerabilities, uncensored truths, journeys, and victories? Welcome to the lounge.
On the podcast today, we have lawyer Lucinda Bendu Razaki to talk about wills. Lucinda Bendu Razaki is an accomplished civil litigator with experience in estate disputes and employment law. She has appeared before the Ontario Superior Court and participated in numerous mediations, arbitrations, and negotiations, bringing thoughtful strategy and strong advocacy to each matter. In the area of estate litigation, Lucinda has advised clients on contestable issues and related fiduciary disputes, leveraging her analytical approach to achieve practical results. Presently, she represents clients in employment-related disputes, always focused on listening to what her clients want and developing a strategic plan of action. She earned her JD from Osgoode Hall Law School and was called to the Ontario Bar in 2018. Lucinda is fluent in Creole and proficient in French.
And we have somebody here great that we are so excited to talk to, and we'll get this question answered. Welcome to the SistasLet'sTalk podcast.
Hello, I'm Lucia, the other half. Welcome to the podcast.
What is the most surprising will story that you've ever heard of?
It's most surprising will story. So, unfortunately, my interactions with wills isn't in the stage when people should be doing them. I interacted with wills when people either do them and they do them poorly, or we have a child that says, no, I should have gotten more, and wants to get more out of what's being distributed. The most surprising will story I had to deal with was finding out that there was a man from a very prominent, well-to-do member of like Ontario 1%ers family, completely double life. Like when I say completely double life, he had a whole wife, kids, adopted kids. Like he had a whole life that his 1% family and friends and business people had no idea about. It's not like he was married or had a second family in that 1%er life. He just never brought his wife and kids into that life. He just kept them all very separate. He passed, no will. He was the only heir to that like family money. And so this wife that nobody knew anything about, most of the money ended up going to him. And through this wife, he had a biological daughter and an adopted child. How I got involved was that the adopted child, because of the way how Ontario rules work with like when someone passes and there's no will, the adopted child isn't automatically given a portion. You sort of have to fight to show that you should get something. And her adoption also wasn't formal. It was like an informal thing.
Hey.
That's the most surprising little story, because you have also this informally adopted child who had a really close relationship with him, planned the entire funeral. And this was the first time that like this man's co-workers, business partners, people who had known him for decades were finding out that he had a whole wife, a whole biological child, adopted child that none of them knew anything about. I think that was probably the most interesting thing I've ever came across. Yeah.
Please, I have a question. Did the family know about his business side?
Yeah, they knew. I mean, they knew he it's funny. He just so his family that he had, he married this Jamaican lady, and this is like a white man. And so they knew all about him and like where he's from and his assets, and that he's someone of money and influence. It's just nobody on that side knew about
that side.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That like my mouth is, I'm stunned. That
2 years ago.
You would
2 years ago.
Wow. You would think that someone like that would, think about something like that and know that this is something that needs to be done. And I think that's why we're actually having this conversation today, because common sense is not common. And what you think someone knows or should do doesn't necessarily happen for whatever reasoning.
Yeah.
So, okay, you can go on.
Without further ado, about the will.
Have you heard any? Do you have any?
Okay, I'm not a lawyer. I haven't dealt with any wills.
No, what they used to tell. Like I have this picture. I don't even know if it's like a story that somebody had said before, but like when they went to read this will, I think it's a story. I don't know if it's real. Like they went to read this will, and all the kids are sitting there, and the lawyer came and and everybody is like, this person already know that they're gonna get the house. This person know they're only get whatever, and then the lawyer came like, nope, all of it is going to this person, and everybody just started fainting, and that was like pass it out, because it's like what?
Yeah, I think that always seems to happen. I heard, so this is like through the grapevine kind of thing, word goes around, and it was someone that I knew in childhood. They were like the top, the high class people, they were like the rich, the aristocrats, and they were always the family, that had everything, and so on and so forth. And then the dad passed unexpectedly, and then now they were all and didn't leave a will. And now people were showing up to claim. Everyone was showing up to claim this and that, and it was a whole kerfuffle, big fight. I don't think they ended up getting anything much, because they're still fighting. And to me, that was like, wow, I didn't think this family that would happen. Like I thought they're all very educated, and but Ontario bought in 2018. Lucinda is fluent in Creole and proficient in French. What that means is he's a Sierra Leonean.
Yes.
As well.
So welcome, Lucinda. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm gonna start off. I have a lot of questions. I'm
Mhm.
just gonna just
Fire away.
go. So a lot of listeners have been told they just need a will and they're
Mhm.
set, right? But we've also heard horror stories, just like the one we just gave. We had horror stories of families spending 2 years in court and more just to get access to maybe a bank account or like assets that they actually should have access to.
Mhm.
Can you explain what is a will?
Mhm.
Why is a will even necessary?
Mhm.
Or should we be thinking about more than a will? Because I know like these words just float: will, probate court, living trust, all these things I've heard that has to do with um, somebody passing or
Mhm.
parents passing.
Mhm.
What is it? What should they have?
Okay, so I think you should definitely, everybody should have a will. Like
Okay.
whether you have a formal will, and we'll talk about what that looks like and how you should get that done, or whether you have an informal will, we'll talk about again what that looks like, pros and cons of that. Everybody should have some kind of a will from like your age of, I don't know, when you feel like you have something that you want to leave behind to anybody, even if it's just a set of books. From 18 on, you should have a will, because I'm going to speak from it for me.
Holy,
A lot
18.
of from 18 on, I
18.
think you should have a will. If there is something that you think you want to leave behind, I think it's a good practice
Okay.
to start putting things down. So I
So
would say
if we're
18.
30 and 40, we're already late
You're
for the
late.
game.
You're late. That means you haven't built the habit of like going in and making changes every so often. But
Move
everybody
For me,
should
forward.
have
I
a
have
will.
phone. I have a phone. I'll put in my will for you.
No, you laugh, but those are things that you can do. Those are
This
things
is
that
true,
people can
actually.
do. Yeah. Um, Everybody should have a will. Outside of having a will, what you're talking about, things like live in trust, there are things that you can do before you die. Because I mean, for those of us who are in Canada, in the States, in other part of the developed world, there's taxes, right?
Mhm.
Right, right.
And so when you pass your estates or your estate, that's what it's called. When everything you leave behind, it's called the estate. Your estate has to pay taxes on what's left behind. So you could do some planning. So you shelter, which means you keep some things out of. In Ontario, we say the CRA. I think US, you guys say IRS.
IRS.
Yeah,
IRS,
you keep
yeah.
it outside of the CRA or IRS hands as much as possible, or limit how much money you have to pay them to give away things that you have worked for very hard in your life to earn. There are things that you can do. Some of those things are things such as the live in trust. I can't speak to the idea of creating live in trust accounts very much, because I don't have a lot of experience with, but the tax planning things that I can speak to, I will. So from before the will stage, one of the things that people can do, this goes to parents, couples. For me, if you've moved in with somebody and you guys are living in a house, then like you should be able to have some kind of a joint account together. Parents, if you're getting elderly, you should at least have one child that you feel comfortable having a joint account with. And the reason why I say having a joint account is, obviously there's risks to joint accounts, right? Because person B
Correct.
that you're putting onto your account has the same rights that you have to this account,
Yeah.
when you make
Yeah.
it joint. But it's helpful for estates planning and tax purposes, because once you pass, the second person on that account automatically becomes theirs. And it
Mm.
becomes theirs and it passes out of the probate process, which means CRA doesn't tax you on that money in those accounts,
Mhm.
because they now automatically belong to somebody else. You take them out of the estates. That's one example, joint accounts.
Sorry,
And
that CRA taxing that you're mentioning, someone had a joint account and unfortunately they didn't know about the taxing and they were banking on what was in the account, but almost 98% of it went to taxes.
Well, that shouldn't have happened. So that's problematic. That shouldn't have happened because when you have the joint account with the other individual, you need to make sure it's a joint account where both of you guys have equal rights to the account. So if one person passes, the money is now automatically yours and it doesn't go through a probate process, which means CRA, estates legislation, they should not be able to come in and take from that money because it's now belongs to you. It's kind of like the same thing when you have property. So another way to, if you own a home, is whomever you're thinking that you want to end up giving the house to, you want to also get them in as in. I'm so sorry. A lot of what I'm saying is going to be very not even Canadian context, but very Ontario context. But I think
it's fine.
I think people can apply the same thinking, sort of like, oh, maybe something similar might be in the States. You want to hold the house, or you want to hold, whether it's a house, it's a condo, you want to hold real property as, again, joint tenants, right? Again, what that means is when someone passes, the property automatically, the whole of it belongs to you. Whereas in Ontario, if you hold it as like tenants in common, so for example, me and my husband Riyadh, if we hold a house tenants in common and I pass, my house doesn't directly go to Riyadh. My 50% of the house goes back into my estate. So it means at some point, my estates can either force the sale of the house, for example, if people within my estate shall choose to do so, and we would have to pay taxes on it. But if it was held as tenants and joint tenants, then when I pass, it's automatically Riyadh's house. No taxes have to be paid on it, right?
So where in the housing buying process or in that process do you actually make that distinction of if you want it to be a joint tenant or a tenant in common? Is that what you said? Tenant in common?
Yeah. Usually you do it in the beginning when you guys are signing title to the property of the house, but you can change it at any time. You can. It's easier when you're buying, right? Because then there's not so much scrutiny on the next person that you're putting in on their income and etc. But really, you can do it at any time. You need permission from whoever is your mortgage breaker because they need to make sure the second person that you're adding on, because they now also take on liability for the mortgage. So there are factors and things to consider, but that's also another way to keep CRA like away from.
So I guess it's something that all of us have to be looking for in our purchase agreements to see which one we actually sign, because I don't think I've ever had those definitions when I was, or if I heard them, they probably sounded foreign to me, and I just wanted to sign all those 5,000 papers they were had in front of me when I was buying a house or closing on a house.
So check it and see what kind of like ownership you have. Another way to beat is like the living trust or trust accounts. I don't know the mechanism and how to set this up, but those are things that you can talk to your financial planner about, what that would look like. Again, it's estates planning, but keeping it out of like a will, because everything in a will has to go through probate. When it goes through probate, it gets taxed. So this is a way to try to minimize taxes that you're paying while your estate is paying on assets. So that's sort of like the before the will, what you can do, right? There are also certain accounts that you can have. So like your TFSA, I think so TFSA for Ontario, it's like a tax-free savings account. They might have something equivalent in the States, or your registered retirement pension plan account. Those accounts, you're allowed to designate a beneficiary on it. So when you pass, those people are the ones that get the funds of those accounts. That's another way to be planning for your eventual passing and keeping assets outside of like the probate process, reducing taxes that you pay like through the probate process.
So like what assets will still go to probate no matter what you do? Or what assets will still be taxed no matter what you do?
No, assets will still be taxed no matter what you do.
Like we'll still have like if you are there things that will still be taxed. It doesn't matter if you have this paperwork or whatever for it, or all of them can be secure.
Valuable art pieces. Valuable art pieces. money in accounts that's not joint, for example. So money in your personal checks, maybe some couples or some married couples, you have one account that's joint and then everybody has their own personal accounts that somebody might know about or somebody might not know about. But your accounts, your personal account.
That's a good point though. That's a good point. Like those separate accounts.
Those separate accounts that your spouse might know about, and then there's the separate accounts which they might not know about at all. Those accounts, for example, will go through like the probate process if they're not sheltered properly. Yeah. Okay.
So I have a question. Well, I have a two-part question. If we kind of go back, reverse a little bit, for our culture, some of these things, especially when you bring up the will, it means you're talking about death, right? Whether it's the senior that has to think about it, or as for me, it said, our age group where we have to bring up this conversation. And I have actually asked, I maybe I was abrupt about it, but I live here. I don't live where my parents live, right? Back home. And so I want to have this conversation and let me know what's happening, because you guys are getting up there. And I just asked straight up, like, what do you want? What do you, and it was, why are you asking me? You want me to, are you thinking I'm going to die?
You want to kill me?
You want to kill me? Exactly. So we have this where when people immediately, when they want to talk about something or about death, it's like, oh, God forbid kind of thing, without preparing. And it's not to say that's what's going to happen, but you have to be prepared. So you've kind of given us some pros about why one should have it. But in the context of approaching our age group, approaching our parents, or even the parents, what are some, if you have any idea or tips of how can we approach this conversation and why we should have this conversation? I mean, we can obviously say, oh, we know why, the pros and the cons, but why should we have this conversation? And my part two is, we have people who we have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, 1 foot in wherever they are in the diaspora and 1 foot in back home. There are people who have assets both places. Now, when you're doing up a will, you do you have to, because I don't want to answer the question, I'm not a lawyer, do you have to have 2 wills, or can you have one that encompasses all of these assets on both sides?
Okay. So let's talk about we're having the conversation first, right? Your first part of your question. I think so you said in my bio, like, that was read, there was all these lovely things, but I think one of the things that I tend to forget is I'm a wife and I'm a mother, right? And so from my perspective, when me and my husband, we turned our mind to like planning a will, I eventually, long time from now, when I die, I do not, the conversation, from my perspective, what I thought about is, when I die, I want my kids to be focused on my death, to be focused on remembering me or grieving my death, not all these other administrative things. I don't want any inner fighting and bickering. I don't want Spamble from like 3 villages down coming, and I don't want any of that, right? And so to try and, one of the only ways that you can do your best to try and prevent that is to have the will. And it's your last chance to really try and get to have a say in what happens to things that you can't take with you, because when we die, like, even your bodies don't take with you, right? So it's your one opportunity to have a say on things that you've worked so hard for in your life. I mean, I'm sure, like, I don't know about you guys, your personal circumstances, but I know my parents have worked extremely hard for what they have, as little as it might be, right? And so I would want them to have the opportunity to be like, hey, this is how I want this to be distributed. This is who I want to benefit from my hard work. This is who I want to gain from my hard work. That's that opportunity. And it's your opportunity to have a last say. Forget about the assets, but just like how you're remembered, how your funeral is carried out, what kind of if you're that specific, what kind of casket you're put in, where you're buried, who's going to give your eulogy. These are the times to have a say. Like literally, they say your last will and testament. It's your time to have your final say in something. Don't you want to plan it out how you go out in this physical world, right? And so that's sort of the conversation. And people that know me personally in our community will say I'm a bit of like, I'm very specific and I want things a certain way. I'm very specific and I want things. I think it's a bit controlling. And so from that perspective, because I know I like things to look a certain way, this is my last chance to be like, hey, I want A, B, C, D. And sometimes you might tell people, you can be like, oh, you know what? Then I don't need a will. I just call Lucia up. I'll just call Fumu up and I'll explain and tell them this is what I want. But there's no guarantee that they're going to do what you want. When you put it on paper, there's an obligation now for them to do what you want. Yeah. And so that's sort of the perspective. And planning a will is you're just being prepared for the inevitable. Inevitably, we're all going to die. The only thing that we don't know is when is that going to happen, right? And so what's so wrong with being prepared for something that you know is going to happen, you just don't know when? Yep. Yeah. So I think if you take it from that perspective in the conversation, you might see a little bit of like reason and give way. I will say, and I'm like straight shooter, I have not been successful with my parents with those same conversation strategies. but maybe somebody else would be successful having those same conversations. With people within my age group, I have been very successful having those kind of conversations with them and getting them to turn their minds to a will, but not with my parents.
Your parents will probably say, what? I'm dead and gone, so you deal with it.
And that is the answer most of us gets, really. Like, I'm done. I'm dead and done.
What do you care?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I tried, right? And then the next thing that you could explain for those, I mean, most of parents might be back home. So again, I don't know how like the Salon laws work back home. But if you don't have a will and you die, it's like, I don't even know the right phrase, but you're basically dying as a pauper in the sense that, again, you have no decision-making capacity. Basically, what happens to all your assets gets determined by government law, right? Even how you're buried, if your family is not in unison about how that's going to happen, it's going to get determined by government's processes and procedure, right? And so, is that what you really want?
Yeah. So about the question about the
assets,
assets. If they have, so say they have assets there, they live here, or they have assets here, bank account here. How does that? Do I need two wills or one?
So I've seen people do it two ways, right? One of the first way I've seen people do is they have one will, but having one will is extremely complicated, and it's not how I would do it. That one will would be something like a global will, because you're looking at assets you're looking at assets in different parts of the world where you have it. I don't like that, because the Salon will laws might be different from the Ontario will laws. Even within Canada, the Ontario will laws might be different from the Alberta will laws, right? So if you're going to have one will, you need to make sure that one will is going to be valid, and the way it's written is going to be valid in every single place that you have an asset on. That's big. That means you're going to have multiple lawyers, or you're going to have one lawyer coordinating that. If you go the formal route, you're going to have one lawyer coordinating with a bunch of different lawyers. One, because law is kind of specific. You practice to the area where you are. You practice to the province. You practice to the state. No lawyer knows everything. They know where they practice, right? And so it's a lot to maneuver. What I prefer is you have a will for every area, every geography where you have an asset. So if you're in the States, you have a will for your state in the state. So in the state of Washington, you have your Washington will. If you are in, you have assets in Sierra Leone, you have your assets, you have your will that deals with your assets in Sierra Leone. You have your two separate wills. And you make sure that you go the formal way, you use a lawyer, and you make sure that I say if you go the formal way, please. Yeah. Go the other way if you have no choice. But really, we should all be doing the formal will. You do it with a lawyer, and then you make sure that your assets are accounted for and your assets are distributed properly. And most importantly, because you're going about it the formal way, no one's going to be able to override your wishes when you pass by trying to challenge what you've already put in place.
We can't do the Aretha Franklin thingy?
You can. People do it. So there is a Franklin thing. It's called a written will or a holographic will, right? That's when you take a piece of paper and you say, this is my last will and I want to give A, B, C, D, this, and this to that person, and you sign and you date it. You can do that.
Put it in your couch.
You put it in your couch. You can 100% do that. But those are the wills that so many times get challenged by people. Those are the wills that bring draw. Those are the wills that Famble from 10 villages can come and say, hey, I should be getting something too, because this is not how my brother writes his C. This is how he sees written, right? There's just... We don't want to do the written wills in Ontario. First of all, a written will has to be completely in your handwriting, right? And it has to be completely handwritten. You can't have a section that's typed up and another section that's handwritten. It has to be completely handwritten. It has to be signed by you, and it has to say language like "This is my last will," or "I'm giving away these things after I die," something along the lines of that. But then, like I said, those are the wills that people can challenge very easily, because someone can come and say, oh, at the time when they wrote this will, this person wasn't in their right mind. They were showing signs of dementia, or they didn't have some kind of a capacity, or they were extremely very sick and vulnerable. Those are the kinds of wills that people can come and try and challenge. Another thing is, it has to be in the person's handwriting. Again, somebody can say, that's not how Peter writes his C. Look, I have this letter from 1995. Look at the C here and compare the C here. And you laugh, but it's valid. A court's going to have to be like, you know what? We have to look into this.
Yep.
Now I need samples of all of Peter's writings. We have to hire a handwriting specialist. All of this, by the way, is going to be paid out of the will assets, the estate assets. We now have to hire a handwriting specialist to determine, like, did Peter really write this will? So we don't.
We have that in medical records too, because you have to be. We have to be sure you're the one who wrote the prescription. You made the orders. If you scratch anything out, you have to sign it. If someone else, like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. So I don't advise it. If only if, like, it's absolutely 100%, like, it's your last and only, like, a chance. Like, you've been talking to your parents from like 19 Jubilee and they're still not listening to you, and you know it's gonna happen anytime soon, and you're like, okay, here, pen and paper, right? So try to make my life easy. Just try. We might not succeed, but let's try. Then you do it. But really and truly, we should be trying to get it done in the formal way.
Okay, so quick rundown of say, okay, so you did get your parents to agree to, okay, I'm gonna write this will. I'm just gonna write it because you've been hagging me. I'm just gonna write it. I have this. How does that person, so on the person's part, what do they need to gather to actually go to the lawyer, or what will the lawyer need from them, or what does it even entail? How do you even start, and what does that process look like? So when you write the will, do they give you the paper and take it home, and then you just say, here, what does that look like?
So what you need to do, the person going for the will service, right? You need to sit down and you need to write down all of your assets. Okay. So all of your bank accounts, where the banks, like where they're located, the banks, the account numbers, if it's your home, the papers for like the home, title to the deeds, etc. If it's things that you want to give away, What I've seen and when I've looked at things is people take photos of the things that they want to give away as a record of them. Because you want to be able to say, these are all of my assets. You want to be able to say, these are where things are located, because people, again, some people might have things that people don't know about, right? They need to be able to find these things. You need to be able to put down the location of these things, the bank account numbers. Photos are always helpful when it's actual physical property. You make a gigantic list as to the best that you can. And then you also start thinking about who you would give things to, how you would distribute them. And you can think about it. There's in the process, there's somebody called an estate trustee. This is someone that will work with your lawyer to make sure like they gather all of your assets, because your assets all get gathered. Then you pay all the taxes on them. Then you can distribute them. Right? You don't distribute and whatever left you pay taxes. No. You gather all the assets. There's a formula that's used. You pay your taxes. After the taxes have been paid, if there's not enough money aside for the taxes to be paid without going into the assets, then they would take from the assets, and then from there, they distribute what's left over. You have to think, do I want the estate trustee to be someone? Are you going to be appointing the estate trustee yourself? Then you need to have a conversation with the person that you're going to appoint, because it's work. It's work, especially if you're someone that has a lot of assets. It's work, especially if you're someone who you have family members who are combative. Because this person has to deal with all of those personalities. It's work if the estate trustee is someone who's not a lawyer, who's not familiar with the process, then again, they have to learn these things. They have to become familiar. They very least have to figure out, who do I go to help me do this job that someone has assigned to me. So you need to be having a conversation with someone. I recommend that the lawyer that you go to, or whomever helps you to draft your will, that you speak to them about finding you a neutral person to act as your estate trustee, because a neutral person who's acting, this is part of like their job. This is what they do. They know the process. They know how things work. And honestly, like, people tend to listen, especially when it comes about like assets and divvying up things. People tend to listen to somebody who has no skin in the game, per se. Even if the person you choose isn't someone that you were going to leave anything behind, but you're choosing that person because you might have some kind of personal relationship with them, right? So you don't know if that person you have a personal relationship with that person, but you don't know if that person also has a closer personal relationship with one of your children versus the other, right? So you don't know how things are going to be perceived. So it's always good to have a neutral person, no connection whatsoever to you, your family, people that you're trying to give assets to avoid problems. You make your list, you think about all those things, you go to your lawyer, you guys sit down. At that point, the lawyer has to, because I mentioned sometimes people can say, oh, he wasn't in his right mind when he wrote this written will, right? Yeah. So one of the first things that the lawyer is going to do when they're asking you questions about your assets and things like that, they're going to test your capacity. So your capacity mentally would be like, are you mentally capable to be giving away things or to be thinking about giving away things? They'll engage with you in a way. If they see red flags where it suggests you might not have capacity, they might say, you know what, I need you to do a formal capacity assessment, which you would have to pay out of pocket for you to do it. If you pass it, then they'll write the will for you. And they do this because they're just trying to protect your will, to make sure that nobody can throw it out by saying you weren't mentally stable when you had this will written, therefore it shouldn't be taken into account, right? Yeah. They ask you all those questions. They ask you how you want to divvy up. Some lawyers might have a bit of idea of how to structure assets outside of the probate process, that maybe they might give you some tips, or they can refer you to other people that might be able to help you figure that out. And then you have your formal will drafted. They'll give you an opportunity to take it home, review it. Then you come back, you sign it. You're going to need, at least in Ontario, you need 2 witnesses. The 2 witnesses have to watch you sign the will. You sign the will, the 2 witnesses watch you sign the will, and then they sign the will. Your lawyer will keep a copy of the will. Your lawyer will give a copy they won't give it to the estate trustee, but the lawyer will know who the estate trustee is. So when it's time, when you pass, they will give it to the estate trustee. Your estate trustee will get a copy. Your lawyer will have a copy. and you will have a copy. And then whomever else you want to give a copy to at that point, you can make copies and give them copies. But lawyer gets one, you get one, estate trustee gets one. That's how that process would go.
In summary, the takeaway is you start at 18. Just start at 18.
Oh my God. The reason why you start at 18 is, even though at 18, like, I don't know, I'm at 18 within my friend group. I had friends who I was like, I know this person loved to borrow these jeans from me. You know what? Anything happened, they can have those jeans, right? You have those ideas, and it's about, no, you laugh, but really it's about.
No, I totally understand. I get the point.
Every now and then it forces you to go back, assess your relationships with those around you.
Yeah.
Maybe even with your kids, if you were thinking, oh, all of my kids are going to get 50-50, maybe 5 years from now you realize, you know what, child A, like, they're doing very, very well for themselves, they'll be okay. Child B, they seem to be struggling a little bit, maybe it shouldn't be 50-50, maybe child B should get a little bit more because they might need it a little bit more in life. Every few years things change for you personally, things change for those around you that you might want to give something to personally. And so when you start at 18, when you have basically little to no assets, unless you're extremely fortunate in life, it gets you into the habit of reassessing every few years to say, do I need to make some changes?
So if you need to make those changes, you have to go back to that lawyer and do those changes. And
you have to go back to that, yeah. And then that lawyer would need to make sure that in the new will, it says that you're revoking any and all prior wills. I recommend that, like, unless you know, like, you have like a terminal illness or something, maybe between 5 to 10 years, you're like revisiting that will again, because you want to be accounting for like different changes in people around you and yourself also.
Okay. I think you mentioned one thing, and we'll come into wrapping things up. But you mentioned something about the taxes. So when somebody comes and bring everything that, okay, I own all these things, is that at the moment that they have to pay the taxes?
No. Taxes are only when the person dies. When your person dies, and you go through the probate process, because you have to get all the assets into probate. You have to pay the taxes on it before you can distribute them out. Yeah.
Okay. But if that is in like I know you said you were not talking about trust, but if that is in a trust, then that kind of changes how that whole taxing thing works.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it changes how the whole taxing thing works when you put it in like in a trust, whether it's a live-in trust. There are live-in trusts. There are other different types of trusts, but the one that I've heard the most in the estate context is live-in trust.
So one quick question before we go. What will you say to that woman right now that is, say, in her 30s, in her 40s, in her 50s, that her of herself, because it's right now, it's not just our 70 and 80-year-old parents that need to do this. We know we should have done it a long time ago.
And we have people in our age group that are passing, to be honest, unexpectedly.
And some of them have small children as well. What is it what will you speak to that woman or that family and say, girl, get yourself together?
Again, my plea would be like, if you're someone that has kids, my plea would be like, you're not doing this for yourself. You're really not doing this for yourself. You're doing it for your kids, to make things. The last thing that somebody wants to deal with when they're grieving the loss of a parent is all of this formalities and legalities and like who gets what. Like that's the last thing you want to be dealing with.
Okay, so before you continue, now that I talked about kids, right? So if somebody is in like their whatever that age, like, right, you have kids that are probably 5 and 6 year olds, right? are those things should be included in a will, or like
yeah.
what
So
document says when if anything happens to me and my spouse, like who's taking care of those kids, like
you
things like
can
that, like
you can put all of that in a will, and that's something like child government agencies would need to take into account when they're determining who will get ownership of the kids or guardianship of the kids if both husband and wife should pass at the same time. All of that can be put into a will, and for yourself too, because I mean there's powers of attorneys, right? So there's powers of attorneys of property, there's power of attorney of like personal care of the person. That's if you find yourself in a position where you're in a coma or I don't know, something's happened, you can no longer make decisions for yourself. It's good to have powers of attorneys, but yeah, you have Alzheimer's. It's good to have powers of attorneys because again, you get to decide who's going to be the next person that's going to step into my shoes and be making decisions for me or be making decisions about my assets. Those are also things to have in place. And again, this is not things that I know like sometimes in our community we have secrets, but you can't give someone power of attorney over your assets and your life and you don't tell them. It doesn't work like that. First of all, you should make sure at the very least get their permission and their agreement. Yeah, get their permission and their agreement to do that. And it's also helpful because then you can start having conversations, because although this person is supposed to step into your shoes, like you also want them to be able to know, hey, like this is how I would want things to look like if I'm not able to make these decisions by myself. So please don't in secret like give these powers to people and not tell them that you're doing this. It's not helpful to you and it's not helpful to them. That would be like my one big tip. Like, hey, 50, 30, 40, something year old lady, sit down, think through yourself. Like, how do you want things to look like when you're no longer here? Who do you want to benefit from your hard work? And if decisions need to be made for you or for your younger minor children, who would you want to be in position to make those decisions for you if it's not your spouse? And believe it or not, there are some people who are in marriages and they wouldn't even want their spouse to be making those decisions. And if that's the case, especially you need to be turning your minds to these issues because naturally when you're no longer able to make those decisions and you're married to an individual, that right falls into their hands. So if for whatever reason you want to take that right away, or for whatever reason you feel like you need somebody else to buffer or to protect whatever interest, please turn your minds to it and have something down on paper. You can swear that person to secrecy, but let them know that you're putting them on these documents. Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I know it's a lot. We can probably go on for hours and still not finish.
Exactly.
So that means you have to come again. That just means you just have to come again. That's not what this all means. So, but thank you so much, Lucinda. That has really been eye-opening. And but let us know can we find you and what will we go to you for, because we know we'll probably not go to you for our wills and whatever stuff because you don't deal 100% with it, but what will we go to Lucinda for and where will we find you? We send your way?
Yeah, so I right now I practice employment law, so who you can send my way, basically from an employee perspective, anyone that's not unionized, who you're working in an environment either where they have terminated your employment, even put you on a layoff, or where you feel like your work environment is changing so much that it seems like they're forcing you out. You could definitely come and talk to me, because if you've been let go, we can figure out a way how to maximize and increase whatever package they're offering you. Because depending on what you signed when you started working, they should be offering you a package. They shouldn't just be letting you.
I have a client for you. Just yesterday, someone called me.
Okay, well, send them my way. I assist with that. Or if you're in an environment where you feel like somebody is like harassing you or interacting with your body or your person in a way that you're not okay with, That's also something I deal with on the human rights context, and that's on the employee perspective. On the employer perspective, I'm very very pro employee, very pro, but I also work with employers. And because I am pro employee, the kind of work I like to do with employers is, hey, you want to let go of somebody, okay, how do we structure this termination in a way where you're saving money, but at the same time, you're acknowledging that this person has, been here 8 hours a day for X amount of years doing this work for you. How do we reach a fair ground, something that makes sense?
Yeah.
What policies or things that you need to put into place to make sure that like harassment isn't occurring in your workplace? How do you structure your employment contracts? I mean, I do this and I like it, but I do this where like, how do you structure your employment contract from the get-go so that people know, hey, if you're working for me and I have to let you go or you quit, this is only what I'm willing to give you. So at least they know it from the beginning before they jump ship to work for you and work like crazy. So those are the kind of things that I do now. In terms of like, if people have questions about estates, I'm always more than happy to talk to anybody within the community or within like the greater diaspora about anything legal that I can help with. If I can't, I'm sorry, it's not in my rules that I can't, but I can try and find you somebody. And so although I don't do estates anymore, I'm happy for someone to reach out and I can talk to you about like all the crazy things I saw with people fighting over like assets and wills and who gets what and why. The reason why I don't do that anymore is because I kid you not, you see brothers and sisters who like no relationship, like they don't want to see, like they're done. You see, like if families they get dismantled over this issue. And I have cases where like the family asset isn't even like 200K. And I'm like, you're never going to speak to your sister again for 200K that you didn't even work for, that somebody else did, right? So I'm happy to talk to anyone about anything that I have some knowledge of. And if I don't, I'm happy to try and find you somebody who might have the knowledge to help you out. Where you can reach me, I don't know. Probably best place to reach me if you don't know me personally and can't get my number that way is to send me an email. You can email me at lucinda.bendu@gmail.com. Maybe I'll ask you put. I'll ask.
You can send us your information. That we'll put it on the show notes and make sure our listeners have it.
This is subject on like what you want to talk about, and if you're reaching out to me for employment law, then you can do it at lbendu@swanlaw.com, which is my current work email address.
Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. This has been really good.
Thank you.
We might have to call you for employment law because that's a topic we're very passionate about, and we know our listeners, they are in that place where some people they're just stuck. They really don't. They can fight for themselves. So it is.
And a lot of people diaspora and don't know their rights. Aside from usually the first, second generation. Don't know their rights.
No, you'll be. It's even people within like my generation don't know some of their rights. Like it's crazy. I always tell people when you're getting a job, it's good to have an employment lawyer before you sign that contract. When you're being let go, it's good to have an employment lawyer. When it seems like things are looking kind of strange and funny and weird in your workplace, go talk to an employment lawyer because 9 out of 10 chances like something funky is about to happen to you and the employer is trying to get away with it.
Some of us just afraid of the word lawyer because it feels like lawyer, all the money I have is going to go to the lawyer money. I think that's
I'm not gonna lie, we charge, but I promise you at least we're
peace of mind, lawyer, peace of mind, lawyer, peace of mind.
Right. At least where I am, we make sure that like you're getting quality service for the money that you're paying. But we charge. We charge.
But
There's
thank
no
you
avoiding that.
so very much. We pray that you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for imparting into our community and giving them this information that we know will be a blessing to them and will help them prepare for what's ahead or even now, because we're only promised today, and really we want what we've worked for, to we want to be good stewardship of what we have, of what we have worked for. So we hope this will be a good we know it will be a good conversation for our community to have, and just to equip that woman to make those decisions now, so it just save them a whole lot of headache in the future. And hopefully some of our parents will hear this and they will help us as well.
Yeah.
If you can have the conversation, just forward the episode to them.
Yes.
That's true.
Send it.
Well,
Hey, listen to this.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for having me. It was great. The process was very natural, very I've enjoyed the chat.
So listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Let us know if there's one thing you took away from this conversation. Let us know what other topic you would like us to bring somebody along to discuss along this line of building a legacy and helping you plan for tomorrow or the day after or years down the road. So have an awesome, blessed day. And don't forget that you have everything you need for life and godliness, and God has blessed you abundantly, more than you can ever think or imagine. So live the blessed life today, and we're praying for you. Thank you.
Be prepared.
Yes, be prepared.
All right.